Good afternoon, one and all. First of all, I thank the technical and the organizing committee for giving me this great opportunity. It's a great privilege for me. So before I go to the important presentation, I'll just introduce my company. Company name is Environmental International Consultants. This was set up in 1998 as a US-based firm. Subsequently, this became an independent consulting firm in Dubai in 2006. We execute projects in India, Oman, and UAE, mainly related to environmental studies. We have our associates as TENAHES, Singapore Natural Resources Consultancy, Oman, and Environmental and Geospatial Solutions, India. So each of us, each of these companies, we help us in getting projects to each other, and we keep executing projects in all these three countries. We provide a gamut of services ranging from environmental impact assessments, environmental site assessment studies, hydrogeological studies, land contamination assessments. We have done a number of land contamination assessment studies for Dubai Municipality and Engineer's Office. And we are also into environmental monitoring studies for a number of oil and gas facilities companies in Dubai, UAE, and Oman. We have created a number of disaster and emergency response plans in India and Oman. Of late, we have embarked into trainings in Bautai and barrier-based systematic cost analysis technique trainings with the help of our software suppliers, CG Risk Management Solutions, Netherlands. They have in fact come out with a stall outside. We are also into HAZOP QRA studies, third-party audits, and incident investigation. So these are some of our clients, and we have been doing a number of projects for these clients for the last 10 years. And now we'll come to the most important topic, that is the groundwater contamination that is happening all over the world. As you all know, petroleum products, it constitutes 40%, and it's an inevitable resource without which we cannot live. Petroleum products, they are handled in storage tanks, pipelines, upstream, midstream facilities, and also in many number of companies. Due to their omnipresence, they also contribute in a major way to groundwater contamination. In US, they say there are about 400,000 reported leaks that has contaminated groundwater resources. Similarly, in Asia, there are thousands of reported and unreported releases of subsurface releases of hydrocarbons that has contaminated soil and groundwater. There are two ways it happens, as you all know. One is surface spill. This sometimes it's remediated on the spot or within a limited time frame. The other one is the subsurface release that happens, which is one of the most common problems which happens in major oil and gas facilities. I've been doing a number of site assessments over the last few years. As you can see, there when subsurface release happens, initially the soil is by many companies, not only in the Middle East but also elsewhere. So how do we monitor groundwater? We construct a monitoring well. Depending on the water level, we drill 3 meters deeper than the present water level, and we install perforated and plain casings through which groundwater enters, and this groundwater is sampled periodically to see if there are hydrocarbons present or dissolved hydrocarbons present. And here, in many of the facilities, I find that the monitoring wells are not drilled to adequate depth. If the water level is 10 meters, the monitoring wells are drilled to 11 meters. When we go on to retrieve samples, we find that there is no water there because the water level has gone 1 meter deep. So we report that well is not sampled, and we give a report every year. And if there is a release upstream of that particular monitoring well, this may go undetected. So whenever monitoring wells are drilled in a facility, it needs to be ensured that they drill at least 3 meters deeper than the current water level, than the present water level. So this is why we monitor groundwater. So if there is any oil present in groundwater, when we do the groundwater sampling, this can go into the well. When we do the purging of wells, then whatever free phase or dissolved phase hydrocarbons are present, it can be retrieved. Okay, how are monitoring wells installed? Normally, you have one well upstream and a number of wells downstream. So groundwater monitoring and sampling is conducted periodically, once a year or 6 months, once in every 6 months. And they see whether hydrocarbons are present in groundwater. So this shows a picture wherein you can see the upstream is on the eastern side and the downstream is on the western side. You have few wells that are located upstream of the storage tanks, and you have a number of wells located downstream. This is an ideal way to locate a monitoring well. But what happens in many facilities is that there are not many wells located downstream of the storage tanks, due to which there are chances that they may not detect the leak at the right time. So what do we do in groundwater monitoring? Ideally, as consultants, we do a VOC monitoring when we open the well cap, and we use interface meter to detect free product, if the well has free product or not. And as consultants, we use dedicated samplers and systematic procedures to retrieve groundwater samples. For analysis of pH, samples have to be collected in amber colored bottles, which you see in the center. And for analysis of heavy metal parameters, samples have to be collected in plastic containers. And for analysis of BTEX, benzene, toluene, methyl benzene, and xylene, samples have to be collected in vials. But what do we see now is, in many of the labs that have been given the work, they conduct in one single bottle. They collect the sample in one single bottle, they analyze, due to which they may not be able to detect the presence of dissolved phase hydrocarbons. So in a nutshell, to say how groundwater monitoring is conducted, the first step is VOC measurements, then well gauging, then well purging. Here this is an important aspect, in the sense that well needs to be purged. You cannot just go and take the samples. You have to remove all the stagnant water, make the aquifer water to come into the well. And then you see whether hydrocarbons are present in the aquifer, so it can be brought into the well, and then you have to collect the samples. So what we observe in many of the cases is, some labs go there, they just collect the samples. They don't get a representative sampling. They just collect the samples. Then once the samples are collected, they have to be stored in ice cool boxes. It has to maintain a temperature of 4 degrees centigrade, and then it has to be transported to the lab with a chain of custody. Then instruct the lab for analysis of the particular parameters depending on the type of product that is stored, and then you come out with a report with interpretation of the analysis results. So when we do this, you can come out with, if there is free phase hydrocarbon, you can use some software to come out with a site conceptual model like this. As I said, these are the concerns we observe during groundwater monitoring. The period of frequency, that is, it is done once a year, groundwater monitoring, which I feel is not adequate. The frequency needs to be increased because leaks don't happen once a year. Leaks can happen anytime. At least there should be a bi-monthly monitoring, at least a simple well gauging and a single indicator analysis that will help you to identify if there is any leak at a very early stage. In addition, of late due to budget constraints, what happens is groundwater monitoring projects are given to labs who don't have experienced manpower or a hydrogeologist or any trained personnel. They just send their technician to collect the samples, and procedures are not followed, due to which the companies may end up in late detection or non-detection of product in their subsurface aquifers. Further, as I said, many labs use wrong containers or inappropriate procedures, due to which there are inaccurate results that are produced by labs. Then sometimes due to financial constraints, monitoring has not been carried out, is not being carried out by companies. We found that in some of the terminals, monitoring has not been carried out for the last 3 years. So suddenly they find that there is a leak, and then 4 or 5 of the monitoring wells has been contaminated. If monitoring has been conducted periodically, they would have had the chance to detect the leak at an early stage. And lastly, they see monitoring as a more, many companies see monitoring as a mere compliance than seeing it as a mechanism to detect leaks. So what happens due to this lack of representative sampling? Then non-detection of product in their samples. They just tabulate results without interpretation and maps. Late detection of subsurface releases, and often the companies end up spending huge amounts for remediation. So how to address this issue? What we'd like to suggest is, in yearly monitoring can happen at the same time. A simple bi-monthly monitoring wherein you use well gauging and single indicator analysis will give an indication whether if there is any subsurface leak or not. In case someone detects product in their monitoring wells, immediately action can be taken to address, to identify the source of the leak and come out with engineering measures. So companies may ask, how can we do bi-monthly monitoring? What about the cost? The cost is not going to increase by 40%. But if you detect a leak at a very, very early stage, you are going to end up saving millions of dollars. I can give an example in India where there was no monitoring carried out, and now the company is ending up spending 1 billion dirhams. So I'd like to summarize and conclude my presentation saying that in addition to yearly monitoring, there should be an increased frequency of at least a bi-monthly monitoring, and competent personnel should conduct groundwater monitoring, and site conceptual model maps or blue maps should be prepared by all the facilities so that they have a clear understanding of what is happening in subsurface. And consulting firms should be engaged rather than labs for